Welcome, everyone, to episode 14 of the SkyTemple Podcast, an exercise in enthusiastic rambling about Explorers of Sky ROM hacks. My name is MaxSchersey, coming live from the U.S. West Coast, and from down under Australia, I am joined by yakkomon. Are you ready for another excellent morning for you recording?
Yes, I'm actually most active in the morning, so it's when my brain functions. I wake up, pretty pretty ready and raring to go. So yeah, this is actually the perfect time for me to record because full of energy, full of energy.
Are you a natural morning person, or are you like a coffee addict, or what's the mood on that?
I'm a natural morning person.
Mm.
I take the philosophy in which and I'm going to be quoting Animaniacs here: "Early to rise and early to bed makes a man healthy but socially dead." That's me.
Yep, that's facts. Very true. Okay. Moving on to the news. We are recording this only 1 week after we recorded the last episode, so I think in terms of actual announcements, there isn't really anything.
No, there isn't really. I was just checking the channel to make sure, and there isn't.
Yeah. Just one thing that is related to the podcast. We have both been talking about this and have decided on it for a while. The SkyTemple Podcast is going on hiatus/ending after Hack of the Year. So we're gonna have this episode, and then we have 2 more episodes planned. Next one is going to be once all the Hack of the Year nominees are announced. We are going to talk about our own ballots, and how it's the same and how it's different from what was collectively voted by the entire judging group, and all that good stuff. That should be a fun one. And then after that, talking about the results of Hack of the Year and just kind of reflecting on the entire year and all that stuff, and having a fun time. So those are the 2 remaining episodes that we have planned. If you want to see the podcast continue, and you want to keep it going in the interim, then please feel free to just send me a DM on Discord, and I can hit you up with the account credentials for like the Google Drive that we use, and the YouTube account, and the Spotify upload service that we use, and all that stuff. But both of us kind of are ready to move on. I'm personally just wanting to try and do some different things that aren't PMD in 2023, and Yakko is going the opposite direction. He is trying to make Hack of the Year 2023. Am I correct on that?
Yes, it'll be. I reckon it'll be Dark Rise Revenge versus Fragments 4 for the crown next year. That's my hot tip.
Early candidates, place your bets on. We need to have a like a sports book for placing early wagers on that. SkyTemple Sports
gambling.
Book.
I'm an Australian. Gambling is in our culture. Bring it on.
Good times. This episode, we have finally been able to get around to this one. It took a while to get scheduled. There's a lot of behind the scenes scheduling that is done for these podcasts sometimes. But we're finally talking about B.L.O.R.G. Hack that was released in
it was Hack Jam 3.
3, okay,
it was the different perspectives one. I got the theme wrong, but it was that one.
Right, yeah. Every hack that does the leader swapping thing, that's an easy way to remember, because Everyone just did that to comply with the theme. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So
Although I would argue that this hack is a bit like that it did use the theme a bit deeper in that way than just the lead switching, but we'll get to that.
yeah, we'll get to that. Neither of us wrote down like a plot synopsis thing. Do you want to start? Because I think like it seems like you have more to say about the story in general, and then I'll go from there.
Yeah. So if you haven't played B.L.O.R.G, it's essentially it's pretty much a Pokemon take on a zombie apocalypse setting, but with a bit of sort of supernatural elements thrown in as well. But you have sort of two different groups of people. You got Lucario and Archon, which are a one team, and then you got Zoroark and Magmortar, who are the villains. And then there's also Team Tiny, but they ran out of time to include Team Tiny in there. But they're my favorite characters, ironically. But essentially, this hero versus villain clash ends up with an accident where some ancient Beedrill bee honey infects a Beedrill and turns it into a zombie muck, and then it's the zombie apocalypse, and chaos ensues. And it's only because of a Marshadow who is controlling this Shadow Gate that sort of lures or lots of Pokemon actually to try and reverse the course of society back to how it was. But I wrote here that a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the plot reminds me of clips I've seen of shows like Phineas and Ferb and Gravity Falls. Now, full disclosure, I haven't watched either, and bit of Yakko lore time. It was because here in Australia we didn't have the male Disney Channel, like the Disney XD channel. Everything was just on the same channel as Hannah Montana, and I never watched Disney Channel as a kid because I was like, ew, it's for girls. It's got Hannah Montana on it. So I never watched Phineas and Ferb, despite it being one of the pillars of the 2010s animation scene. But I only know that this, and it's definitely been confirmed to me that Phineas and Ferb is a massive influence on the dialogue on this app through server interactions I've had with Nikola. He loves Phineas and Ferb as much as I love Animaniacs in terms of influences, creative influences, story influences, and all that good stuff.
That's pretty cool. I'm also not really familiar with either of those shows. I kind of, I fell off watching cartoons at a fairly young age. Like Phineas and Ferb, that's kind of like past when I would have been watching that stuff.
I mean, it kind of was for me as well, but I sort of dropped off around a bit later in life. I think 15, 16
Okay.
for me. And then I found Animaniacs pretty much at that point, and it's like my life begins here.
Replace one vice with another.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't know. In terms of what you're saying, like identifying the influences and all that stuff. What I wrote just in terms of the dialogue and the way this stuff is written, it's very this game's very witty. Like you can tell writing the dialogue they had a lot of fun, just like messing around with all the wordplay and stuff. But it's a witty game. What I put down was it's witty in a whimsical way rather than a cynical or an ironic way, which is usually, kind of what comes to mind when you think of stuff that is full of wit, poking fun at whatever may be occurring. But this game to me doesn't feel particularly cynical. It feels like joyous and always keep a smile on your face and all that stuff. Different strokes for different folks, whatever, etc. talk about the story. I think most of the characters here are pretty delightful. There's a couple standout scenes. This is a pretty short story, but like all this, it feels like there's not really a lot of wasted time at all. Like there's something memorable seemingly happening in every single scene. I guess let's start with the opening. The opening segment is very good. The prologue with like Lucario, Archon, Zoroark, and Magmortar. They all have really just such great synergy with each other. We talked last episode about every Lucario is a shonen protagonist. that I think that applies here too.
Yes.
This Lucario is so funny. The part where Zoroark reveals himself, like Lucario walks up to Magmortar and is like, I'm suspicious of you. Yeah. Then, oh wait, I hit the wrong one. And Zoroark says, "You trust far too easily." You can just hear the dramatic,
the dramatic inflection.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really good. They're just the whole start of that game. Meanwhile, Magmortar is just like, little shithead runs away and then tries to steal the honey. The part where it actually starts and like there's the B.L.O.R.G talking to him like, dude, just get away from our honey. Won't you guys just fuck off? Please stop trying to steal that. And then one of them like oh my god, you come on, now you got his stinger stuck in it, and then he turns into a zombie, and then they both just like look at him, the music cuts, he goes, "Lord." It's just good. I don't know how to say it. Just the way that it's paced and knowing when to let the moment breathe, and like I don't know. It doesn't hurt that the jokes are actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's just a certain level of I guess what I was saying earlier about it not being so cynical and so ironic, I think works in its favor a lot of the time, so that when something like that hits, even if like maybe you don't think it's the funniest thing ever, it's just there's a certain level of weight there regardless.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
What else? We're gonna talk about Marshadow more later, I think, once we get to the boss fight.
Yeah.
He's also really funny. I'm a big Marshadow fan. So I guess where we segue after this is talking about like there's 2 dungeons in this game. Well, there's there's the illusion of 3 paths that you go after that intro to the game, which didn't even talk about how the part where everyone starts running away from the zombies. The way that whole thing is choreographed is really good. Really like that scene. But once that ends, you get to the Marshadow part. Marshadow picks who they're going to follow, look into the shadow, or however that works in lore. I don't remember. There's Team Tiny, which is a meme. Actually, you have a note on Team Tiny. Do you have more than that to say about them? That's about all I have.
No, I think all I said was they're actually my favorites. So for those who haven't played, it's a Joltik and a Flabebe, hence the name Team Tiny. And Joltik is like he talks like an 8-year-old kid who loves an adventure, and it's like alliteration, to the nth degree. Lots of big big words and heroic words and long sentences, and they're just like Joltik especially. It's just really, really really good. And I think a lot of people actually like Team Tiny, and I think, which I will ask in our interview, I believe Team Tiny will have their own hack to make up for the fact that their story was not fleshed out at all because of the time limit of the jam. I think we're going to get a Team Tiny hack in the future, but yeah, it was they were actually out of all three. I mean, all characters are strongly written, but yeah, you can't really say much about Team Tiny just apart from what is presented to you, the 5 minutes that are presented. But yeah, they are they are definitely ones I wish got more screen time, and I believe they will be in a future hack.
Yeah, Team Tiny, the way that it's played up, whenever there's a dialogue with the two, there's epic music playing in the background.
Yeah.
That's that part of it's very good as well. When are we gonna get the Team Tiny? Are we starting to, since we have enough established creators, are we starting to get into the spin-off era of SkyTemple? You know what I mean? Like, when are we gonna get our Team Tiny racing game? You know, when are we gonna get the I don't know. I don't have another one. I think racing is the go-to example.
Sports.
Yeah, exactly.
We talk tennis.
Exactly.
Brelo out on the golf course. There we go.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine trying to animate that? Holy shit!
No, he just uses his tail.
Oh god. So Team Tiny, that's one path. The other two paths are, to me, it honestly almost feels like two different games. Where you have the path where you follow Lucario and Archon, and then you have the Zoroark and Magmortar path. Let's talk about the villain path first.
And I actually would say that it's probably better to choose that one first from a
because it makes
story
sense
continuity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the crux of it is past the start of the game. At first, the villains, they think it's cool that a bunch of evil stuff is happening, but they conclude, wait a minute, if everyone's a zombie, then that's lame, because the cool part about doing evil stuff is that you get to see the emotions in people's faces when you do bad things. And you get to be a cool evil guy. But if everyone's a zombie, then they don't have emotions, and that's not fun anymore. Okay, you know what? That's very true. That's a very good point. I'm sure it is a lot less satisfying to be an evil mustache twirler guy in the apocalypse. So whatever. They decide that they are going to try to stop the apocalypse and follow Marshallow's letter that is sent out to them. You have a dungeon. You team up with Blissey, who pretty much just gives you free heals. And then all your enemies in the dungeon are a bunch of SkyTemple references. Do you want to talk about that for a second? Do you have any strong feelings on SkyTemple references in hacks? I know that for some people that's a hot topic.
Yeah. I think there's a line. I think there's a line that can be drawn. I think references are okay as long as you don't need knowledge of the references for it to work, I suppose. So say the hack that I made with Ass Cucumber, Spanky and Mutual's Day Off, right? That is 100% dependent on, like, that is a community hack. That has references to other games, stuff in the fandom, even outside of SkyTemple. memes and all that. Now that is one extreme. I think the other side of it is, I mean, I do, and I'll go back to this. I'll go back to something because I know it. I'm familiar with the material. Is Animaniacs, right? Then the original series. A lot of the jokes with Animaniacs, right? They're made so that kids who don't understand the references find it funny because this guy's doing a funny thing or this guy talks funny. But the adults laugh because they understand the reference and all that. And I think it's the same here. I think in B.L.O.R.G it's kind of okay because you can sort of understand, oh, there are other explorers here and all that. It sort of works. Although, I mean, apart from, I would think, Discarco, that's a little bit, I think that's a community thing. But yeah, I think if they're done right and with the, if you're not, I guess, punished or whooshed for not getting it, then I think it's okay. But it's really just about context and everything. And because you're right, it is off topic. Yeah, that's what I think anyway. Sorry, I'm sure there were some words there that made sense.
Yeah, I think you got your
But
point across.
yeah, but yeah, I think the references in B.L.O.R.G are okay. But yeah, and not reliant on knowledge of it to sort of understand why they're there.
Yeah, I feel that. I think as I'm kind of split on it personally because I think that just as like something that you add to your work, right? All art is context dependent. I don't really see anything inherently wrong with just adding references to your game. I mean, you go back to even last episode where we fucking talked about Green Day and that shit got disconfirmed in the comment section, and then like the Ask Cucumber section where we talked about all that stuff, and whatever. Like art referencing art referencing art referencing art is as old as time itself, right? It's something that I think is always cool. It's something I can add to it. I don't really have a problem with it on that front. And like to your point, it helps more when it actually makes sense instead of just being like, here's a reference for the sake of there being a reference. Where and this is me being the fun police here a little bit. I do think sometimes about like, does it help the growing SkyTemple community to have so many in jokes that you wouldn't understand unless you're like actively browsing that Discord server? Because the way I think of it is, if I were to if I would be in the position of making another hack, and I'm keeping in mind like the target audience being people that are just outside of the scope of the SkyTemple Discord server and blah blah blah. I don't think anyone likes feeling like they're left out of an inside joke. I think that's a pretty universal like shitty feeling of just like, I don't get it. Why is everyone laughing? So I don't know. To that extent, I think that just solely looking at it from the perspective of like, what are we going to do to make it so that SkyTemple blows up and everyone can have all of their projects be like so huge and widespread? When are we finally going to get our breakthrough pop single that trends on TikTok and we're going to rule the charts for the next 6 months? I don't think it's going to happen by just having like inside jokes to inside jokes to inside jokes to inside jokes to inside jokes. Which none of that actually affects the quality of the hack at all. But that's, I guess from that perspective, that's my main way that I think about it. But so this is a reference dungeon, as we were saying, as we go back to the game. I think we are both pretty split on this dungeon because you have a note that says that you didn't pick up Blissy's Reviver Seed stash. I didn't either. Like, I had no idea where that shit was, and I totally forgot the floor by the time I got there.
I forgot the I forgot it too. Even though it was one of those, like, what the funny thing was too was, like, the way that Blissey said it, which I find is funny. It was like repeated, like it was like really stuck out. Hey, I've got a Reviver Seed stash. You better, and all that. And I find it fun. We both forgot about it. It's like it was like a really almost. I should pay attention to this type of dialogue, and we both missed it. Did you die though in the boss fight at the end?
Oh, I died well before the boss fight.
Okay. So I got up to the boss fight.
Okay.
And I lost to it.
Yep.
And then here's the interesting thing, right? Is that instead of you going through the dungeon again, it's just a cutscene where Zoroark and Magmortar. Now I didn't have. It's been a while since I played, and I haven't actually found the scene on online yet. But there's a scene where you lose, and it's almost like they're just auto going through the dungeon, and then like it's just a black screen cutscene, and they actually do pick up the Reviver Seeds on the way. Now I don't know whether whether if you did pick them up, whether it changes or not, but yeah, like it auto picked up the Reviver Seeds for you.
So there is a cutscene in which, after failing, they go through the dungeon in engine and pick up the Reviver Seeds and then go back to the boss room, is what you're saying.
Not in engine, it's just a black screen scene.
Okay.
So it's just a black screen scene with dialogue boxes on the lower third that, then they do pick up the cutscenes, Reviver Seeds on the way, but it's not in engine, it's just a black screen. So yeah, I think which I found quite interesting. Interesting there, and I only remembered about the Reviver Seed room when that part played in the scene.
That is pretty interesting. Yeah, so I didn't even I wonder if they added that at some point in Hack of the Year. I remember because I played this game for the Hack of the Year version, and I also played the original release for Hack Jam 3. I want to say that was not there in Hack Jam 3.
It was because it was because I played, because I was a judge on Hack Jam 3.
Okay.
And I that was my specific playthrough that I've only done. That was back when I played it. And yeah, I died in the Blissey boss fight, and then the scene afterwards, instead of you having to go through the dungeon again, it was just that scene, which included them picking up the Reviver Seeds.
Okay, so I just goofed myself because I was about to say that when I went into that fight, I immediately saved state 1 at the start of the fight because the dungeon to get there is so... It is... I'm gonna be honest, dude. There's way too many monster houses. That is my one-word summary. Too many one word, one sentence, one phrase summary. Too many monster houses. I've already done my monster house rant on one of these episodes. I'm pretty sure about how I just inherently don't like random monster houses. In this hack especially, like, a lot of these mons have broken fucking shit that can hit you. Like, a lot of the strats that you could normally use to, like, maybe it'll take a while, but you can get out of a monster house unscathed. The Skako has Ominous Wind. So if they're in the corner of the room and they do that, the step that you walk in, you can just lose right there. Just little stuff like that. It does get me a little bit into irritated gamer mode when that happens. And I believe there's a couple other mons that have range moves and stuff along the line as well. Whatever. Point is, I died a lot and then went back to the beginning during the dungeon. So when I finally got to the boss, I instantly made my save state, and I didn't even entertain the possibility of letting a cutscene play out. So that's on me.
Yeah, I think it's I myself I forget I'm only new to playing games on emulators, so I forget that save stating is a thing, and so which is why with other hacks I've gotten myself stuck in a death loop with when it comes to dungeon balance, because I pass a point of no return, forgetting that save states are a thing. So yeah, it is interesting the different. Like, I play it on emulator as if I'm playing on hardware, which I know is not how most people do, but yeah, I try and not. I try. I forget about save states half the time, but B, try not to use them, and so play it as if I'm playing on hardware.
Got it. Okay, so back to the Blissey boss fight. Okay. One of the questions I'll just leave it at this. One of the questions I'm going to ask in the interview is, what the hell is the strat supposed to be? I'll tell you how I cleared it the one time that I did, which was on the Hack Jam version of the game. I made a new save state after every turn that I did, and waiting until I got an RNG seed where I didn't get hit by Muck like 4 times in one turn. And then I had to keep doing that until I won. Because this fight is most certainly structured like a puzzle where there's one answer that the devs obviously want you to do, because everything that you think of, there's an answer for it. For one, these fuckers, these Muck, chuck sludge bombs at you from across the map. You can't hit them from all the way across, except with, I think, Magmora's flamethrower. So they can do that from the very start of the fight, and they hit you for like 40% of your health, I think, if not more. So that's going on. Also, they pick up a fucking reviver seed at the start of the fight, which you have no way of taking from them, as far as I'm aware. So that's cool. So really, even though there's 6 Muck, you have to kill 12 Muck because they all come back after you kill them. Also, because Blissey's in the fight, Blissey just sits in the back and heals them the whole time. So you would think, Yakko, you would think that the strategy is to go after Blissey and kill her first. Well, you can try that, but you're going to be surrounded by 8 Muck while you're trying to kill one Blissey who has way too much fucking health. And then you just lose that way. So I don't know what you're supposed to do. And that's going to be a question I ask. You know why, Yakko? Because this is not a podcast where I talk shit and then I do not bring it up to the dev's face like a coward. I'm willing to admit that I am probably in the wrong here and that there is an intended strat, but I have no idea what it is.
I will say, I look at the Hack Ideas channel a lot, and I know Nikola has put in a lot of ideas about almost like sneaky strats, like sneaky, like, there is a way to cheese. Like, I've coded something in this way that if you figure it out, you're a genius, right? And I think that might be. I wouldn't be surprised if there is something there. I can't remember exactly. I can't remember exactly. It's been too long. I think I can't remember what I did for that fight, to be perfectly honest. So I'm just going to let you take the floor on that one. But yeah, I would agree. I reckon there is an intended strat, although intended in air quotes, because I think it's one of those things where it's a sneaky intended strat. I think a minority of people will work it out.
Moving on from that one. Let's talk about the hero route now. With Lucario and Archon. The start of it, the crux. There's a great scene where Archon is the real protagonist of this game, just like the stupid cowardly sidekick who becomes the hero unexpectedly. Love it. And Lucario's just the cool guy who gives him his guidance to become a real leader and a champion before moving on. Archon's kit, before we even start talking about Rock Smash, Archon's kit is really, really cool. The fact that his attack is fucking dog shit. He's always double speed, so he can like always catch up to Lucario. Just the visual storytelling of it is funny because what he's really good at is running away and getting scared. Essentially, that's his key ability. And then he has the ability to drop traps, which is I just want to talk about Marshadow now, but we're not there yet. And then I think he has like quick attack, and I honestly don't even know what his other moves are.
I think one of them's Roost.
Roost, yeah, he can heal himself. That's right. Yeah, but that's really all you need. Because he's just there to run and be in the back, very transparent.
Yes.
Lucario is really, really OP in the dungeon, but this dungeon is less about the enemies and more about the Rock Smash.
Yes. So I have a question which I wrote here.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who is a story-only player of PMD,
okay, and
has only ever used my hero and partner Pokemon, which usually are a Chimchar and a Pikachu, but there have been other things in other playthroughs. I did not know about Rock Smash's power and thought it was genuinely a soft lock, right? And not a puzzle. And I wasn't the only one. There were a few help threads during Hack Jam 3 where people were thinking it was a soft lock. So what did you like when you that first floor, like what did you think when you like I assume you knew that you could use Rock Smash, like being a more seasoned professional than I am.
So I just started with the thought of like, well, okay, the PMD, the way dungeon generation and PMD works, it doesn't, like, it's not possible for it to accidentally spawn you in that situation. So I knew it was, there was some kind of fixed room, something going on. And then from there, that's when I started looking through everything that's available to me. And it's like, okay, what do I have that is something that could possibly get me out of this situation? And then I happened to see Rock Smash and then try to use it. And I was like, okay. I don't know. That's interesting. I personally, I thought that it was like fairly intuitive, I guess. I mean, you have a move called Rock Smash and you're smashing rocks.
I figured out that it was intended. yeah, I figured out it was like I full disclosure, I did reset my game,
Okay,
and and then when it happened the second time, I'm like, okay, I think this might be intentional here. So I think I did get it the second time, but yeah, I was I was bamboozled a little bit
I see.
because of my like my critical thinking skills were not activating at that point.
Got it. Got it. Um, yeah. Aside from that point, I personally was a pretty big fan of that dungeon.
Yeah,
I
same
thought
here.
that so there's a lot of things as soon as the realization that Rock Smash is going to be what's going on. The number one thing that I went uh-oh, especially because I played the villain story first, which to me felt kind of brutal. I was like, oh my god, is this gonna be something where like you have to already know what the perfect route is or you're gonna run out of PP? That was my number one concern. They don't do that, thank god. um you have more than enough PP to get through the dungeon, just like fucking around and doing the wrong path all the time and whatever. um there's a lot of variance on just like using Rock Smash to break through stuff correctly that keeps it feeling fresh throughout for the whole however many floors it is. The one to me that I remember the most, it was pretty funny. It's the one where you start, Lucario just spawns on his own. Archon is trapped on the other side of the room in a block, and you have to break him out. That one's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not much going on. Like I said before, Lucario just like one taps everyone. He's a super Giga Chad. But then the zombies come for him, and then you
It's up
play
to
as
Arshan,
Archon. Yep. Uh,
who is like we said, double speed, running away, um, terrible attack. Like it's again, it's like another puzzle.
yeah, it's right. It's another puzzle. Um, I think Nikola has even said that inspired by 8x. That's something. Take a drink every time we say inspired by 8x on this podcast. From the Blizzard Island, where Vanillite is trying to find Groudon. I think I like this one better than the Blizzard Island Guide one personally. I think it takes that formula and expands on it more. It like Archon feels like he's good at running away. You know what I mean? I guess that's the difference.
Yeah.
It feels like his kit is built exactly for this one situation because it is. He's good at it, and you do a lot crazier shit. Like there's been a lot of situations where I'm just running circles around like 4 or 5 zombies at a time, doing the jukes on them and then getting out of that room alive. Feels pretty great. Then you make it to the end. Then you finally fight Marshadow. The whole that scene where Marshadow and Archon talk to each other is so funny for no reason.
Yeah. I think my favorite line was I think it was, I believe this is what the kids say at this point. LMAO, get wrecked.
Yeah. Fuck me. It's like Marshadow is just very transparently trying to legally skirt the rules set up by Giratina, right? And what's funny is that he keeps saying the same thing to Archie like 2 or 3 times. He's like, "Come on, dude, please just understand what I'm saying." And then after a while, Archie's like, "Oh, yeah. I am a wimpy guy. I will never be able to beat you." And then Marshallow's like, "Okay, finally, finally, you're on the same page." That fight's really cool. I talked to someone who said that they, just by looking at the layout of the map, they knew how to. They knew like what the solution was to solve that puzzle right away. You know what? Some of us are bad at games, so we aren't that blessed. But I had a lot of fun trying to figure out how this all works. There's a lot of like,
I liken it to trying to put a key in a door that sort of fits but doesn't, and then you suddenly get that. Like, it's all this dungeon, this boss fight is all about recognizing the AI patterns of PMD, which are
Right.
very rigid patterns. Like,
yes,
in terms of how bosses move and how enemies move in general. Like, that's the whole reason why this boss battle works, is because PMD has a very rigid set AI movement command that makes it predictable. It really
Yep.
it's almost manipulation of the game for a puzzle. It's great.
yeah. No, absolutely. It's really cool as well because it's like you get the gist of what it's kind of like. There's two steps to it, right? I think of it almost like more of like an old school style puzzle boss, where like the first half is, all right, what the fuck am I even supposed to do to hit him? Which is a lot of it. I think that some people, when they play this game, they might I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that without asking people. Personally, I realized right away, like, oh, you're supposed to put down the traps and have him walk onto the traps. It took me a little bit to figure it out. Like, I was just kind of walking around the arena. At first, I thought I was supposed to get him to step in the lava and burn himself. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's why they gave him Stealth Rock. For some people, it might take a little longer. I don't know. So that's kind of like phase one, figure out what to do. And then even if you know that, your positioning the whole time is still important, because if you think like, okay, all I have to do is, let's say, keep going diagonally. You do that until you get in the corner, and then you realize, oh shit, no matter where I move, I'm going to get hit, because I should have moved a different direction like 5 turns ago, and now I'm screwed, and I'm going to die. So it's a nice little refreshing brain teaser. Feels very, very unique. And it's cool. There's been a lot of puzzle stuff that has been done in hacks that have come out in the past number of months. This is probably my favorite of those. Like, favorite puzzle, boss, dungeon, or whatever you want to call it. Awesome. Shouts to Marshall. And then the story ends, and there's another black screen because they ran out of time. It says, imagine all the cool visual effects that we were going to put on screen here. Yeah.
We totally didn't write this 4 hours before the deadline.
Yep. Nope. Hopefully that's something that they can patch up in Team Tiny Racing coming out next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the game. We're going to go on to the interview, unless you have anything you want to add. Second.
My 1 second is up.
Okay. Let's see everyone on the other side. And we're back. Time for the interview. Niko and I are joined by Nikola and MattShark, the team behind B.L.O.R.G. First question that we should have probably done research for is since you two are a team, that worked on this hack. How were the duties divided between you two, and what exactly? How did you both contribute? So we could start there, ask questions based on the answer.
Very good. Who should answer the question first? Would you like to, or should I first? Or
Whoever wants to talk.
Oh, gotcha. That was my cue. My bad. Yeah. So, let's see. I'm MattShark. And that was Nikola speaking before. So generally, how it ended up, for the most part, was, and again, we kind of helped with each other's parts. But I did a lot of the cutscene scripting, as far as like making the characters move around and such. Nikola did a lot of the dungeon design and gameplay, and I'd say between the two of us, he did a lot more of the creative work on this. He had a lot of really good ideas. I added on to them, but mostly was just playing along. But overall, the workload I feel was about equal between the two. We were both available for a lot of the time.
agreed. Can I continue a bit from there?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay. I am Nikola, not Nikola. And so my part was mainly the in more detail the bulk of the narrative of the story and the characters, conception of them first, and then the development of the basic draft of the story to be developed by both of us afterwards. And at that time, and still at this time, I'm not very good at actually, I don't know how to make scenes on my own yet, but I can edit the text. So that was a part that I helped with additionally, and I mainly did dungeon design and the how to say it, the general game design, gameplay design, however you would call it. I am not quite sure. I am very amateurish at the whole process and the nomenclature of the process and so on. And that was about it. I would work in when I was awake. MattShark would work when he was awake, and we sent patches between each other.
Yeah, there's a bit of a time zone difference. When he's going to bed, it's about 3 p.m. for me. We did a lot of our work earlier. Luckily, I had a pretty flexible schedule back when we were working on this project. So I was able to meet in the mornings while it was late for him, for the most part.
Right now, that was very good. I had a pretty flexible schedule myself. Uni days when you don't have uni, and then you can wake up at noon and go to sleep at 2 a.m. in the morning. But like for now, at this moment, it's almost 11:30 in the evening for me. I am luckily not accompanied by any other members of a household to bother them with this talking late at night.
Yeah, the joys of different time zones, finding anything that works for anyone. That's one thing about the pod for sure. No, that's really cool. That something that I was really wondering once you two started elaborating on how very different what you're doing was, like, how do you collaborate? I think that's the number one question that that a lot of people who haven't worked in a team before have. Like, how does that work? Is it more efficient than working alone? But it sounds like it worked out pretty well for you two, right? Just being able to, like you said, pick up where the other left off.
No, I do have something to share with that.
Go on.
Okay, so I will say for that this experiment actually, or I guess this hack jam submission actually was an experiment for me. In general, I tend to work faster when I'm doing stuff alone, I found, just working on some other things. So most of my projects are solo. But I did want to try and join a group for this particular hack jam because I was seeing how other big groups were able to pull out some really cool stuff and giving credit to each other for their parts and whatnot. So I did want to be in a group for this one, and I'd say it turned out very well. Maybe me enjoying solo work is usually because it's pretty common to find like other people that don't put in very much work, but here in the SkyTemple Discord, everyone's doing it because they enjoy it. Nikola definitely does enjoy what he does, and that made each of our individual loads a lot better, I think.
Indeed, I would agree, certainly. And I also definitely had wanted to join a group because I was, well, this is my first hack. And in fact, in many ways, my first actual active contribution to the hacking scene, so to say. I was very inexperienced, very, in general, I am a theoretical mathematician. I largely like working with theoretical things,
Oh wow!
As can easily be seen in my oftentimes started theoretical technical idea posts in the SkyTemple Discord. But for that hack jam, I really wanted to start doing something active, something productive, something like actually making something and not just daydreaming and being a leech off of other people's technical capabilities. So actually I started out looking to learn how to make a scene, a cutscene, during the hack jam. But then it ended up that was exactly the area I didn't do. But yes, I was very satisfied with working in a team. It was, I am sure that it was the reason why we managed to even make something of the scale of what B.L.O.R.G ended up being. Exactly because we had different time zones and managed to separate our workloads such that I had like the master copy of the patch mostly, and did dungeons in it, and MattShark then did the things that can be copied from one script to another, which I would then update after he sent them to me. So we managed to separate the things we were working on in such a way that they didn't overlap much. Every now and then we would send like establish a new master version when things had to be changed in SkyTemple that I didn't know how to do. And then I would get the master copy back. And we did it that way, and it advanced very nicely. It did take us a long time to come up with actual ideas. We started, and then we took like a week or so just brainstorming. Oh, what if we did that? Oh, maybe we could do that. Oh, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this, maybe that. And then things started getting close to deadlines.
Yeah.
That will be later. Later we will probably mention that very much.
Got it. Yeah. To your point about the whole, being an ideas person and wanting to translate that into an engine. That's I think that's kind of an experience everyone has, where it's like not easy, as much as the limits are constantly being broken and redefined and whatever within this hacking scene. There's even just what you're saying, like the actual design element of it, actually pulling that aspect of it in a way that really fits what works in your head. I imagine that's something that you probably had to tinker with a lot until you got it right.
Oh, definitely. The dungeon design part was definitely a learning experience. There was much that, since then I got generally interested in dungeon designs, the dungeon design singular number, and when I look at some of the things I neglected to do back then, I find it a bit silly. Like not putting thought into some things that would really have been nice or convenient or productive to do at the time. They really didn't they didn't come to mind back then at all. But all in all, I really liked it and learned enough to do dungeons and even like gameplay design concepts made into reality in a way that I generally liked. I was satisfied with it, and that was a really nice experience. And yes, that's it. Thought finish. Please
Got
go
it.
on.
Got it. Let's transition to
hard to cue when who is speaking in this way.
Okay, got it. Let's transition to talk about story a little bit. Something that I'm personally curious about is both Yakko and I talked a little bit in the first half that we're probably not familiar with exactly what both of your influences are come from that front. And this kind of just open floor question here. Who thinks about making a zombie comedy? That's something that I wouldn't have really thought about doing. I think it works for sure, but where did that idea spring from, and why do you think that would translate well to PMD?
Yeah, that one was not me.
This is a very fun question to answer. Also, it clearly shows you are not familiar to the extent we are with the inspiration materials that influenced the story. It goes like this. First thing, I have had in my head for several years now, actually, before making B.L.O.R.G, ever since I was in high school, the idea of a Pokemon zombie comedy concept in which Max lurch around saying B.L.O.R.G, 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 and whoever they touch melts into a Mach themselves, and so on and so forth. And where that actually came from is the show Phineas and Ferb, which is a musical comedy of various genres, very good, very funny, which greatly influenced me ever since childhood. It's one of the sources from which I learned English well, along with, for example, Pokemon. And they had one special episode, like one 45-minute special, and it was a zombie movie parody, which is very hard to explain if you don't know anything about Phineas and Ferb. MattShark, would you care to attempt such an explanation?
All right, so I must admit that I myself have watched Phineas and Ferb, but I cannot at the moment recall a 40-minute special about a zombie apocalypse going on.
It was in the final season. You could have missed it. Essentially, the bumbling comedic evil scientist created a machine called the I think the name was
I got it now.
I think it was the repulsinator or something like that, made to make anyone it hits repulsive and terrible and so on. And for some inane reason, like I will make my brother ugly and I will be popular in comparison. And he's silly like that. And it turned anyone it hit into mindless, cross-eyed copies of him. And they were like the zombies. It was
I see.
It was called also the pharmacist outbreak. The repulsive pharmacist outbreak or something like that. And it was hilarious. It was everything zombie movie, but everyone turns into a cross-eyed man in a lab coat who all the time says, lots of me, lots of me, lots of me.
Okay.
This was the main direct inspiration.
Got it. That's great.
I will say, Max, that I know you said in the first half how you're not familiar with Phineas and Ferb. I bet you've heard at least one thing from it, which you've probably seen in the survey. You know that that quote that people quote, or that meme where it's like, if I had a nickel, if X happens, then I'd have 2 nickels.
That's from that
which is
show?
Strange that it's happened. That's from that show. So that's the type of humor. That's
okay.
That's what I mean. That I'm saying that, like, even for me, having only seen like clips of the show, that's how come like I picked up on like that, and the server discussions I've had with Nikola, that made me go, yeah, I can definitely see the influence here.
Okay.
If I may interject just for a moment. That joke, which I am honestly surprised is a popular internet meme, I don't understand it at all. Probably since like people who are now grown up enough. Sorry, my accent is all over the place. I don't speak English very often. I usually write in it and read in it. Probably because people who watched Phineas and Ferb when they were kids are now of internet citizen age, and they propagated this joke. But that is not just from the show; that's from the movie.
Right.
Okay.
It's a really silly joke. Not really. I'm not going to explain it in detail, but it's a really like silly offhand thing that I really don't understand. Well, of all things, why
Don't worry.
Came a meme.
Animaniacs is the same. Animaniacs is the same. I mean, there is a joke that gets, and I know we're straying into cartoon discussion here, but this is the SkyTemple Podcast. But just permit me one. This is, but there is a joke in the classic Animaniacs where, like it constantly pops up in the top 10 dirtiest jokes that you never knew and all that, and it's actually like a really it's actually not a very good joke. But that seems to be the only thing. Like, people go, oh, Animaniacs was so dirty, and look at this joke, and it's like, it's not even a good joke. And it was even the producers who wrote that joke thought that the censors would chuck it out. Like, that was one of those jokes that they write in for the censors to chuck out so that the other less sort of, the more kind of like the less dirty stuff that's still dirty gets through in comparison, but the censors missed it. And now, I know there's plenty of Animaniacs fans. Like, there's more to Animaniacs than this joke. Like, anyway, sorry, rant over.
I can agree that.
If it makes it any easier for you, I don't remember them as dirty at all, and I am not familiar with this impression.
I can disagree with that doof 2 nickels joke. It is not by far the funniest line in the series, but that is the one that just gets handpicked.
Yeah, yeah, that's I can relate.
The curse of you never know what's gonna become a meme on accident is eternal.
Definitely.
Yeah. The I guess creative process though for the story. If I could share something about that.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
So remind me again what the exact theme of this hack jam was, if you have it on hand.
It was various
viewpoints,
I think.
Various viewpoints, got it. Because one of our earliest brainstorming sessions, I think the very first one, the imagery I got from, the hack B.L.O.R.G has kind of a theme where there are 3 different viewpoints, and you can explore them kind of at will, at your own pace, whichever viewpoint you want to see at the time, through the eyes of Marshadow. That idea was something that I thought of at one point, and the inspiration for that came from a book author named Brandon Sanderson, if anyone's heard of him.
Not familiar personally.
Not myself.
Right, he's a fantasy author that does a very good job at I guess jumping between viewpoints throughout his books. Like, his biggest series, there's got to be like at least 10 different viewpoints, like maybe like 3 main ones, but there's a lot of different viewpoints he does. And for some reason, me enjoying his writing style got me to think, well, maybe we could do that, I guess, for this hack jam. We have 3 different stories that are going on at the same time. And the story would just jump between them at various points. And since this was a game, we ended up putting when you jump into the player's hands, whether or not they want to complete an entire arc and then complete the entire next arc, and then complete the 3rd arc. In our original plans, we were going to complete that 3rd arc, but as it's come out, we lost a lot of time. Yeah, Team Tiny.
I want to ask about that. So what I want to ask about that, if you didn't have, if you could put all of the stuff in, like there was no time limit and everything, what was Team Tiny's role in the story going to be? Like, I know they find the crystal at the start, but was there anything else planned for them?
Yes, it was indeed. Actually, half of Archon's role was meant for them. Let me recall it. It was like this. Lucario and Archon, they were supposed to bring the crystal to the gate. And Magmortar and Zorork were supposed to unwillingly buy time for Lucario and Archon to be able to do that by fighting off the maniacal Blissey. And Team Tiny, they were supposed to be the ones to beat Marshadow, because they were so small and tiny and non-threatening that he would say to them the same things he said to Archon. Oh, you are so tiny, I don't need to use my powers fully against you, and Joltik would, of course, get deathly insulted at this, and so on and so forth. But we realized relatively soon enough that, however, we ourselves also loved Team Tiny the most out of all the characters present. Their story just took the longest time to click. It didn't fall in place as quickly as the Zoror concept or the serious, stereotypical hero Lucario with a sarcastic, funny sidekick idea. And we just gave up on them and put them in as definitely the intro and the hero, the dungeon with heroes in it, and of course the wonderful final
meta commentary.
final scene.
We all love
We were
Team
sorry.
Tiny.
We were sorry for doing that, but it just had to be.
Yeah. I will say, I will say, as far as content goes, our original completed storyboard of sorts would have made this game at least twice as long as it is now.
Definitely.
Well, yeah. We had to cut out a lot more stuff than we had no trouble at all coming up with extra stuff to put in there. We really bounce ideas off each other very well, but
yes.
so we're missing a lot. But
Got it.
No,
Very
the way,
insightful
you know
answer.
the way, you know the way. I don't know. For instance, how Zoror goes away to do robbing now that the apocalypse is at hand, and then immediately comes back and says, "Ugh, this was no fun at all. These B.L.O.R.Gs are annoying." Arr. That was supposed to be either a dungeon or a level or at least a montage, but no time.
yeah, there are actually 3 scenes in the code that are just dedicated to that montage.
Got it.
That we were never able to fill out because of the deadline. There's this one background in the files that just an entire treasure room. There's like at least 10 treasure chests just in a layout. We're gonna have Zorarok walk in like, whoa, and open up a chest and there'd be a muck in it. And all the other chests open and there's muck in each of those and they all taste out. Like, we were gonna go all out with the montage there, but we just ran out of time for that.
That's always the saddest part, right? Having to kill off some of your creations to get it out the door in time. Yeah, no, that was really insightful, though. Definitely, thanks for that answer. Moving on to dungeons a little bit. Something that we talked about in the first half of the pod a little bit is that it feels like there's almost 2 separate games going on with the hero route and the villain route, right? In terms of, it seems like the villain route is a lot more about trying to push the existing familiar systems of Sky in such a way where it tests your knowledge and how well can you adapt and blah, blah, blah. The hero route is a lot more of trying to do something novel because that's where all the puzzles are stored in, right? A lot of really cool stuff that we haven't seen before. So my question there, which one was, both of you or whoever wants to answer, which one do you think was more fun to work on? And which one do you think is the future of where PMD hacks are going? 2 distinct directions.
If I could answer that would be my area. First of all, that is a very interesting observation you made, which I only now see applies to the 2 routes, to tracks, so to say. I think we call them tracks more than routes. Indeed, the villain part is more like classic, and the hero part is more like experimental and puzzly. This was not intentional. the intention was that each dungeon past that first intro nothing at all dungeon, and each boss fight has some kind of interesting gimmick or interesting going on, that it's not just a regular something. And the hero dungeons were actually the last things to the later additions, so to say. After I settled on the concept that each dungeon and each boss fight needed something to set it apart, something to be hopefully fun and interesting, I went about first. I think it was first I'm gonna have an escape dungeon, because I had played Blizzard Island Guide by Adex, and that was a big inspiration. I had loved that, and I had wanted to do one myself. Then I came up with the villain dungeon with Blissey. That was my attempt at making a relatively hard dungeon with lots of high octane explosive fighting with attacks flying around, lots of damage, very hard, but with an ally, with Blissey, who was geared as as useful as possible guest healer, with moves that would heal you, that would help you. So to make this generally the intention at least was a hard dungeon, suddenly more manageable, easier. And also to just experiment with trying to make a useful and convenient guest. I've seen in the server that people share their rather bad opinions on how Cresselia plays in the vanilla game. And Blissey is in fact an edited Cresselia. Hopefully much better. I don't recall having such trouble with her, but I had played that for the last time about 10 years ago probably, so I don't remember it very well.
I also don't have much trouble with Cresselia.
I can't relate to that meme either. That's one of those things that you just see a lot on the internet, and you you wonder where it comes from.
Indeed. And then I came up with the Rock Smash idea, or the first part of the hero track. That took me a while, but when I realized, oh, okay, wait. Rock Smash isn't used often. Maybe it can be used for cool stuff. And then I discovered how to use fixed rooms well. And I really liked it. And I wrote out a bunch of papers. I work better on paper than with digital stuff. And I figured out shapes, configurations of fixed rooms for wall that blocks you on entry, wall that blocks the exit, fun shapes for punching through, and so on, and made about 10-ish ideas, each one basic concept, then more evolved concept later on, and so on and so on, concluding with the separated archen fixed room. That was a fun one. I had, in my experiments with it, discovered that you can separate mates like that, and I found that interesting, and also in character for Archen to get captured and fall into some trap, and then Lucario has to go and save him.
Of course.
And then it was just the Marshadow fight was the last one that fell into place. Took me a while to figure out how to do it in some interesting way, because the first two boss fights, the Zoroark boss fight, in which you change perspectives in a matter of various viewpoints, trademark, copyright, and so on, buy our products and so on. It was fun because you had it was generally like the two villain track boss fights fell in place more easily and were more connected, so to say, counting the Zoro boss fight as part of the villain track. Because in the Zoro boss fight, you have Zoro fighting Lucario and Archer. Lucario has a reviver seed, not seed, underfoot. This was a thing I discovered how to do relatively at that time, and I found it very interesting and wanted to play with it. And so you have an enemy with 2 lives, essentially, unless you remember to use Thief and steal his reviver seed.
I just want to interject and say I tried that and it did not work. I don't know if I was doing something wrong. That was the first thing I thought of in that fight.
Lucario?
Yeah.
That shouldn't have been a problem, I think. Maybe you had maybe your bag was full. I really don't know. I think it should work because Lucario doesn't have any. I think he shouldn't have any abilities that prevent stealing. The Max definitely do. Though that was a deliberate, perhaps trolly choice that they have.
Okay, I might be getting those two confused then. Maybe that's what's going on.
That's probably it. Lucario's you can steal, but you probably shot flamethrowers at him before he managed to be much of a problem. But if you miss those, then he can very much kill you. But in the end, it doesn't matter because that fight is just buying time. It doesn't matter who wins or loses. Also, in that fight, Zoro has the hero's bag. I've looked at several playthroughs, and usually people are, wait, what do I have in this bag? Or what's this bag? Is that maybe the hero's bag? Yes, of course it is. Like, she said so moments ago. That made this fight interesting. A elaboration of this concept was the Blissey fight. In its draft phases, in its early phases, it was terribly, terribly hard. It would burn through like 6 or 8 reviver seeds easily. It was terrible. You may remember that I was, I don't know, I was talking about it in the Hack Jam related channels, that my boss fight is very hard. I may have made a very, very hard boss fight. It needed to be quite nerfed in the end to not be brutal and merciless. This fight had a lot of enemies with 2 lives, that is, reviver seeds underfoot. Side note, the Max sprites are very big. They have a large base, which covers the entire item they are standing on. So this also comes as a nice surprise for players. Like, the fight starts, okay, there's a lot of Max around me, there's Blissey there, let me do something. And then you see the little messages go, Mark picked up a reviver seed, Mark picked up a reviver seed, and so on. The intention was for the players to see that and go, oh my, what am I supposed to do now? Okay. And also, that fight had a cleric boss. That's how I at least called it, envisioned it. Blissey, who heals the other enemies, making it one very desirable strategy to try to go for her first. But also she has Fling, and the Mac have Fling, and that disrupts your positioning. And I found that really fun in testing, and this was a relatively easy battle to figure out. And then we come to the Marshall fight. That took a long time. I didn't have any ideas for it, but then it I don't know if it was my idea or if MattShark suggested something that made me think about the diagonals and so on, but main gist was Archen is fast. Archen. How should I even read that name? Archen was fast and also frail. And the idea at first, the idea was that you would have to set traps, dance around Marshadow and so on, but it wasn't very fun before the lava came in. That's when it really clicked together. And I really liked how that turned out, and it was really fun seeing people play that part and figure out what they should do. That was really interesting. And it took me like until that last minute to decide on, oh yes, Stealth Rock, that will be good, Stealth Rock can do a lot of damage, and then I can make Marshadow like super bulky and like take 1 damage from anything Archen throws at him, and that was really I found that really interesting. And from what I saw, the players I saw playing it had fun with it, and I'm then super happy with that. End of line of thought. Go on, please.
Yeah.
So I had a question, I guess, about the gameplay ideas. Were there any? There's a lot in there, right? Were there any that you were worried about that you might think, oh, people might not like this?
Not really. I generally just thought of that. I need something for this. It needs to do something. I didn't think like, oh, people won't like it. No, they will just like, they'll have a little puzzle or a little novelty in front of them, and they can play around with it, tinker with it. I wasn't honestly worried that they wouldn't like it. Now that you mentioned it, maybe I should have. But it didn't really cross my mind at the time.
Yeah, that's all good. That's all good.
Yeah, that was really insightful. I had one question written down, and we talk about it in the first half about just asking what in the world was the developer intended strat for the Blissey fight. But it seems like you answered that question already. So
if I may,
yeah,
about that, the intended strat for that fight was, quite honestly, have a lot of reviver seeds. You have area of effect moves. If you you can just spam area of effect moves and rely on your copious amounts of reviver seeds for a really like saloon beatdown type battle. Like it was meant to be really a kind of battle for which you need a lot of reviver seeds, for which it is intended that you have a lot of reviver seeds, which is why there is that huge stash of reviver seeds in the dungeon previously, and which is why basically you have reviver seeds at every step of the way through the dungeon.
And which is why too, if you fail to pick up the reviver seeds and you lose, then there is that cutscene that I got after the loss where you just auto go through the dungeon again and pick up the reviver seeds on the way.
That's actually the reason for that.
You are going to hate that I'm saying this. When I played through this game the first time, I didn't even learn until Yakko brought up that cutscene existed, because when I played through, I just made a save state at the start of the fight, and as soon as I lose, I just reload my save. So I never saw that scene, and I just kept trying over and over and over, and I didn't find the stash either.
You were scared.
MattShark, would you like to tell them about the big dangerous thing about that scene?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
should I don't know whose area. I think that was my area more, maybe.
Let's see, was it the randomization or was it when the season?
No. The randomization that didn't want to compile that was that was a development time problem. But somehow we figured that one out. The big problem with that scene, which I guess you got, did you get it, Yako, on the older version or the more recent one?
It would be the Hack Jam version.
Okay, but definitely not the original Hack Jam version. The original Hack Jam version we had submitted didn't have that scene implemented well, in the sense that in Union All we had the scene transition controls, and during some reorganization of them after MattShark implemented saving, I think, the part of that scene where you actually get the 6 reviver seeds or something, that was missing. So essentially, in our mad crunching until the very last second before the Hack Jam deadline, we had left a bug, how to say that, a fault in the game, which would result, if you lose to Blissey on the very first original Hack Jam submission version, in an endless circle of torture and death that you would not be able to escape, because you would be killed, then you would be sent to the random montage scene in which you are supposed to get reviver seeds, but you would not actually get them, and you would then go back to the Blissey fight without reviver seeds, and so on and so on and so on, without a way out. That was a really, really scary experience to realize we forgot that.
I do remember that. I just forgot it got published.
That was horrifying. I think it was Filthy of the jury who played that original version, and he played in a very speedrunnery kind of way, like all willy-nilly, zoom, 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 zoom. It was horrifying to watch.
I guess he completed it with only maybe 2 reviver seeds being used.
Yes, luckily that was. I was dying watching that.
I feel that's everyone's biggest fear, right? As soon as you see someone start playing this, oh god, they're not playing it the way I thought they would. What's gonna happen next?
Oh, definitely. I learned that feeling firsthand watching Filthy play. Like, my intention was that you go through everything like slowly, methodically, you read everything, you look at everything, and he was just going vroom, vroom, vroom. It hurts to watch, but when you make a game, people are gonna play it the way you didn't intend, and that's just a fact of life. What can we do about that?
Right.
Also,
Fail saves.
Speedrunning rule, no using the reviver seed room.
What did you say? I didn't hear.
No, it was just just an idea. Speedrun percent, no reviver seed.
There you go.
Or no reviver seed room. I mean, just skip it.
I remember someone saying, this game is like very speedrun unfriendly. I mean, like, what are you thinking? Oh.
Death of the author strikes again.
Oh, very much so.
Next question. So this for both of you. I'm just wondering, because it seems like you both put there's a lot of love, a lot of heart put into this game. So I'm wondering is what for both of you, what is your favorite part of the scene? That could be like a favorite cutscene, a favorite boss fight, a favorite dungeon. What is your favorite part of the game.
You can go first.
All right, I think I've got like a top 3 in no particular order.
Okay.
For me, watching the game being played for the first time, via the live stream, for me, I created most of the cutscenes. Or actually, I guess all of the cutscenes. You did more of the dungeon stuff. Just the first scene after the heroes and everyone else end up climbing up Honey Tower. They get to the top, and there's this whole confrontation with Zoroark revealing themselves. Just watching the live audience kind of reaction to that, like people were laughing, people were enjoying that scene a lot, and having written a lot of that, for me it was just awesome to realize that people, I guess, do appreciate the thought and the work that you put into stuff. I don't know. For me, that scene is it's still funny to me. I feel like the collaboration between me and Nikola in writing that. He got most of the personalities. I did most of the dialogue. I did take some of his stuff word for word. Cough, cough, Joltik, cough, cough. But
I can definitely agree with that sentiment. Though I must say, I did not and still do not understand the Dio joke. The
It's
is
me,
I
Dio.
Dio joke. I don't get that one at all.
Now, to be completely honest, I do not either, other than the fact that it's pop culture. You reveal yourself, you say, it's me, Dio. It's a Jojo reference, that's all I know, and that's all I cared about, so I put it in there.
I don't even know what this Jojo thing is about, but you liked it, so it stayed in the Hack of the Year version.
Yeah, Nikola tried to change it.
I wanted to put something I understand.
Oh, no one on the internet needs to understand that.
Okay, I can say that my favorite scene, while we are at the scenes, my favorite scenes are two of them. Well, let's say two of them. I really like what we did with the villains, with Zoroark and the. I caused an apocalypse, but now I don't like it. I want to prevent it, even though that's technically not evil. I really like that, and the great Blissey defeat scene by MattShark. But I must say that my absolute favorites are the intro and the outro with Team Tiny and with Joltik.
Right.
That first Joltik, the first Team Tiny scene, the text for that was mostly mine, especially all the Joltik lines, and the final lines were not entirely mine, but I really liked how Joltik was complaining to me about not getting more scenes.
Mind if I interject here?
That made me really laugh out loud when I first saw that one. And,
Do you mind if I interject here?
Yes, definitely, please do.
Okay, I did have to share. So we submitted our hack jam at like the very deadline. Like I think we were actually about 5 minutes late. Now we do have to kind of share the ROM as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
So in like that last half an hour or so, it was just me at the scripting of SkyTemple completely writing that outro from scratch. And Nikola did not know that I was going to add Joltik in there at all. That's the one Joltik section I can
surprise
take credit for. I thought it would just be great to meta call him out for not including him more. So that to me was I was going to bring that up as my second of my 3 favorite parts of the whole hack. Was the fact that he didn't know that scene was in there either.
That one really turned out great, and I think you took his lines about the fabulous finale of fame and fortune and so on. I think we were discussing that very thing sometime in the brainstorming part, and never got to make it, but then you actually managed to put it in, and that one really turned out great. And then for the Hack of the Year version, I wanted to like add a nice addition. That scene, like, worry not, Joltik. Plans are in motion. Team Tiny will return. But then I messed up the text centering tags, and then it looked really ugly and uncentered. That's why that very minor fix from like 2 weeks ago was made. That was why.
Got it.
Like 3 text centering marks. They were terrible.
Got it. Yakko, did you ask your first bullet there already?
I don't think I have.
Okay.
I guess because I know Nikola, you're very prolific in the hack ideas channel. You have a lot of hack ideas. Can you give us any sort of preview as what your next what your next hack project might be like? And I guess this answer, we probably already know the answer to this, but will Team Tiny be in it?
What kind of question
Either of us
is
can
that?
talk about this.
We can both talk about that, yes. We've been brainstorming what we could do with them for a long time, because ever since we kicked them out of the starring role in B.L.O.R.G, we really wanted to do something with them because we really like them. They are really funny.
I guess the question is, do you want the 5-minute version or do you want the 30-minute version?
I would love the 30-minute version, but I think we only have time for the 5-minute version.
Okay, then. What could we do with a 5-minute version? A Team Tiny hack. A hack which stars entirely just Team Tiny. Joltik and Flabebe and the third member, which I actually quotes publicly revealed, unquote, like yesterday in the server, because I had thought of a really funny line and said, okay, I shall attribute this line to the character. That is Sinisty, to be the third member of Team Tiny. And I don't know, what can you think of more to say, MattShark, in the 5-minute version? I don't know what to talk about now afterwards.
Yeah, so we haven't started any physical work on a ROM of sorts, but we have been talking about this, I guess, hack all on its own, featuring Team Tiny. So I won't talk about like stuff we haven't agreed on yet or finalized yet, but it will feature Team Tiny. They are the main stars. It won't be branching out like the last one that we did, because that was to fit the Hack Jam theme. We have a more defined personality for Flabebe now. Flabebe? Still not sure how to pronounce that.
Flabebe.
Yeah, and and Nikola's talked about that a little bit in the Discord as well. But we do have a general direction. We will be making fun of their size. There are already dungeon gimmicks that we have thought of. It will be pretty gimmicky, kind of like this one was, or just like B.L.O.R.G was.
I'm really interested in that part, so to say.
Yeah, and we're going to be diving into a bit more ASM this time around as well. Scripting stuff that me personally I've not seen in other hacks.
Note, please. One note, please. when he says we will be looking at ASM, what this means generally is I will be asking Adex or Adex or
yeah.
however am I going to pronounce his name. I have been talking to Adex about these things for a long time, and for whatever reason I really can't fathom why he likes it so much. He really likes solving this stuff for you if you ask nicely enough and if it's interesting enough. So I have deals with him, so to say, about several possible cool things.
Okay.
If you can't code it yourself, you get other people excited about it so they can code it for you, I guess.
I always
It'll
try
pull
for
through
my
real-
ideas for tech stuff to be not just for what I'm doing, or to be like some random idea that came from Mars. I really try to base my technical ideas in what is already established and possible, and what I learn from observing and talking to people is currently known, and for instance which areas of ASM Adex is familiar with personally. And then I just think of like, okay, we can do thing A and we can do thing B. Hold on, what if you combine them in this and this particular way? Then we could make some cool thing. And that, I think, can be like useful to people in general. I'm always a bit scared that I that I end up looking a bit like I sort of leech or parasitizing on others' technical capabilities. So I really try to make these idea contributions very public useful, so to say, very nudge, advancement type of things.
Got it. Well, hey, you two, this has been an awesome interview. This is, I think, the longest one we've had by a lot so far. But a lot of great stuff. But it is about that time. Nikola and MattShark, in 30 seconds or less, why will B.L.O.R.G win Hack of the Year?
Can I do that, please?
Do we each get 30 seconds?
I have a note that
go
I
ahead.
wrote in advance. Okay, start the timer whenever you want.
Okay, go.
First, it won't win Hack of the Year, but it has some neat dungeons that are hopefully pretty interesting and creative, and it has funny and hopefully memorable enough characters to maybe win something. I don't know. There's very high competition. There's Adex and there's like Alpha's dungeons and so on, and Psychic Puppets, and competition is high, but maybe something, who knows. We already won some awards. That was a miracle enough.
All right, time's up. Thank you for that. And any final closing remarks before we end the recording?
I have this closing remark. When the hack jam ended, I was really happy with how my dungeons turned out, and I was like, oh, I did this really original stuff. Maybe I can win us an award with this. Nobody made things like that yet. And then Adex comes by and does Psychic Puppets. And that was really funny to see. And how absolutely better than mine his dungeons were. Somehow we won. I don't know how. His gimmicks were much cooler. MattShark, if you have anything, go ahead.
All right. One thing I will say is, other than mystery mail, that was, I guess, my first dip into working on a community project that other people would play and enjoy. This has been my biggest modding project to date, and I've dabbled in modding Smash. I've dabbled in Unity for VR chat. I've dabbled in Wind Waker, but this, I think, has been the most memorable experience working on this hack jam with Nikola. It's been great to be able to. It feels like I really have contributed to the community this time instead of just goofing around on my own. And so I just want to thank everybody on the Discord for their support. Thank everybody for their help with the code. Thank Para for working on SkyTemple, and overall everyone for just being awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all for coming on. SkyTemple Podcast, episode 14. We're done. Thank you all for listening. And
remember, we will be back in next time with Hack of the Year, our nominations, mine and Max, and who knows? We'll see.
Possibly
we might get some of the other
special guests, one or multiple.
Yeah.
Ooh. We'll see. But that's next time. Thank you all.